What's up, everybody? Nicholas Kuzmich here from nicholaskuzmich.com, and in this episode of Accelerated Results, we're going to go deeper about talking about how to find and locate your ideal prospect, and then how to identify them in such a way where you can communicate to them so that they think you're only speaking to them, and then as a result, you increase your conversion rate. So hey, before we begin, if you'd like me to personally work with you to get you even more results in your business, even better results, if you got a great business that's kind of doing well, but you felt like you hit a ceiling and you just need someone to give you specific direction and advisory on how to get even better results with limited work, but leveraged kind of advice, then go to workwithnick.com. Again, workwithnic.com. Fill out a brief form there. I'd love to hop on the phone to discuss how I might be able to personally help you get better results in your business. So, as I mentioned in a previous episode of Accelerated Results, when you are thinking about your ideal prospect, before you come up with your ad, before you come up with your campaign or your content strategy or any of that, what's most important is that you identify what I call your 4%. In fact, I want to write this even bigger just so we see what I'm talking about here, right? It's all about the 4%, right? This is, again, with the example where Stella Artois knows exactly who they're going after for their customer base, and they come up with headlines like, hey, we cut no cost in the creation and the selection of our ingredients for our beer, and then we pass those costs on to you, our customer, right? Reassuringly expensive. I want you to be very super clear about who your pond is, right? Because we have this choice here to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond. And although we all know the answer that the better play is to be a big fish in a small pond, we act like and we create and we treat our businesses like we're small fish in big ponds, right? And look, I know, Mr. and Mrs. Entrepreneur, that what you can do can help just about anybody. But the problem is on social, if you are everything to everyone, I know this is not proper English, but let me just kind of say it, then you are nothing to no one, right? You need to be very clear about who it is that you help. It's the difference between being a general practitioner as a doctor or the highest ranked cardiac surgeon in the country. A, who do you think has to do harder marketing, right? The general practitioner or the cardiac specialist? B, who's got the wait list, right? C, who's chasing them versus the other person having to chase clients? And ultimately, 4, who's getting paid the most between the two? So I want you to have to see yourself, right, as the cardiac specialist that works with a specific case and, carve out your pond there. It doesn't mean you have to stay in one 4% pond the entirety of your business, but it means you need to focus on these little 4% pockets at a time. So first, what I want to discuss are 2 key traits that your ideal 4%, your pond, should have. And then secondly, we'll talk about how you can identify those things in the people that you're looking for or in the business you currently have, so you can create all your marketing and your campaigns to speak directly to them. Again, before we continue, if you'd like me to help you discover this personally, right? It's one thing to hear about it. It's one thing to take courses. It's one thing to read books and podcasts and go to events, which is all great. Information is good, but access is better. Implementation is better. If you need someone like me to just be in your corner and tell you exactly what to do, right? To eliminate the thought of, what do I need to do next? And I think I have to do this and this and this. If you want to eliminate all that and have a direct, specific napkin plan on what you need to do, then just go to workwithnick.com. Again, workwithnic.com. Fill out a brief form there, and we'll see how we can help you. So 2 key traits, if at all possible, that you should have when you're thinking about your 4%. The first trait is underserved, right? If you want to move into a market and identify a segment of your market that you really want to help and elevate and become the big fish and have a first mover's advantage and be one of the key authorities in that space, then the first thing you want to think about is, what is an underserved segment of your marketplace? You may have read the book or heard of the concept, the blue ocean strategy, right? The idea, in short, is if you're competing against everybody and everything in your space and you do what many other people do, right? That's considered a red ocean. But if you can move into an area in your industry, a segment of your industry that is not being helped right now, that is being underserved, Then you can move in there, establish authority very quickly, have first mover's advantage, and rise up the ranks as a trusted authority very quickly. So you can then be the big fish in the small pond. You can increase your rates. You can get better results, and you can kind of be the key player in that space. So I want you to be thinking about what is the industry that you serve, and then narrow down not the 20% that you actually help, but the 4% that you actually help, and see if there's a segment that is currently being underserved. A good example when I started was that when Facebook ads first came out, most people were doing the t-shirt thing. I don't know if you remember these days. It was Teespring and everyone was doing t-shirts. It was e-commerce, it was Shopify, it was all that. And the people who were being underserved were the thought leaders and the information people. So I moved into that space when everybody else was doing t-shirts. I moved into that space, owned that space. And then of course, years later, everybody else came into the space. So we moved into a different space. But the idea was we identified an underserved segment that we could move into and help very quickly. So think about your space and say, who is underserved in my industry that we can move in and help and get great results for right away? So you can be the big fish in that small pond. And two, if at all possible, the segment should also be affluent, right? Now think about, why would you want an affluent segment of your marketplace? Well, because frankly, I don't like having discussions with, potential clients or customers about price. Right? If you can actually just go after people who can afford your services, especially if you're selling higher ticket, right? Then your conversations aren't around can you afford it or not, or convincing them to try and go get the finances to make it work. Your conversations are really coming down to what really matters, and that is, do we have a good fit? Are we a good fit for you, and are you a good fit for us? And those are much better sales conversations to have than can you afford it or not. So the idea is, can you look into a 4% segment of your market that is ideally underserved and also affluent, right? I know one guy who, when he started his SEO business, this was many, many years ago, he started his SEO business, he looked into the space and he said, well, who's underserved and who's affluent? And he realized that Southern California had a pool of cosmetic surgeons who were not being helped with the SEO. Now, cosmetic surgeon, their ticket price for a transaction is like $20,000. This guy basically charged $10,000 a month to do SEO services to this underserved affluent segment of his industry. And heck, if he got them one client, it paid for the service, so everyone was happy. So I want you to be thinking about that in your space as well. Who's underserved and who is affluent, so that you could charge the fees that you want to charge, have conversations around fit rather than finances, and then things will go that much better. Now, before we continue, if you're serious about trying to identify these and really reaching your market, and you want someone to kind of handhold you along the way, right? So you're just not like figuring all this out by yourself. You're more of the doer than the thinker. Or you want to say, someone just tell me exactly what I need to do to get the results that I'm looking for. Hey, I'd love to do that for you. Go to workwithnick.com, workwithnic.com, fill out a form, we'll hop on the call, and I'll show you how to do just that. So when you're thinking about your space, right? Here's what you want to know. 4%. Big fish, small pond, underserved, and affluent. Now, how do we kind of identify this? We just want to ask 3 simple questions about our current customers or clients to help identify this, right? Question number 1 is, who has paid me the most? Right? So if you look into your client pool right now and you see, wow, I've worked with X number of clients over X number of years, who of all the people that I've worked with has ended up paying me the most? Whether that's the highest fees, whether that's recurring because they bought everything that I put out, whether, whatever it is, when you look at a transactional value of LTV, lifetime value, what group or what pockets of people have paid me the most, right? The second question we want to ask is, who's been with us the longest, right? So if you're a coach or a client, or you have a service business, or you're a customer, you have a product-based business, who has kind of bought stuff from you forever, since the beginning? Who's the OG in your group, right? Or who are the OGs who've been there since the beginning, supported the brand, supported the product, supported what you do, and has just kind of been around with everything that you do, right? And then you're going to start to get a sense of maybe the type of people who could be in your 4%. And then lastly, who has given you the least headache, right? Because even if someone has paid you the most and they've been with you the longest, if they've given you or your customer service a whole ton of headache and they're a pain in the behind, frankly, not worth continuing with them, right? So once you look at your current client or customer database and you see who's paid me the most, who's been with me the longest, and who's given me the least amount of customer grief, right? The least amount of headache, now you can start to cross-reference and see, well, what are commonalities amongst these people, right? What is it true about these people which should start to identify 4%? Right? Are they part of the same industry? Do they live in the same section of the country, right? Do they all have a certain revenue goal in their business if you're in the business space, right? If you're in the health space, do they all share some commonality? Whether it's a common commonality, like they all have diabetes, obviously that would be a specific thing, or an uncommon commonality. Are they all people with diabetes, but their husbands are war veterans? You never know. Right? So the idea is you start to identify these things, you loop that into underserved and affluent, you realize 4%, and then today you make a commitment, friend, that every time you put out an ad, a communication, a content piece, everything about your business should be geared around your 4%. Because they need to feel the most loved. And I'll end by saying this, that attraction marketing is very important, but just as important as attraction marketing is repelling marketing, right? Detraction, whatever the word is. The ability to repel the ones who are not your perfect customer or client so that you make room for your perfect customer or client. And this will help your marketing. Friends, if you found benefit to that, please go ahead, like, share, comment, do whatever you need to do to get this out there to more people. And if you want me to be your corner man, right? I don't like to say coach. I'm not a coach. I'm not a rah-rah kind of guy. I'm not the guy who's like, you can do it. I'm a tactical strategist as an advisor who can give you specific goals, specific things, specific strategies, literally on a napkin to give you a 90-day sprint on what you need to do next to get your next best result. If that's of interest to you, go to workwithnick.com. Again, workwithnic.com. Let me know. We'll have a conversation, see if there's a great fit, and we will talk again real soon. All the best, and we'll talk then.